Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at this 2021 Toyota Venza. So the first generation Venza was a midsize SUV sold from the 2009 to the 2015 model years. It was pretty heavily based on the Lexus RX, and it served as a midsize crossover that had otherwise been missing from Toyota's lineup. The original Venza was discontinued after the 2015 model year, and it returns with a second generation model here for 2021. This second generation Venza is based on the Japanese market Toyota Harrier, and it's built on the same platform as the current RAV4. What's unique about the Venza is that it will be offered exclusively as a hybrid with standard all-wheel drive here in the US. It uses the exact same powertrain as the RAV4 hybrid, makes the same power, gets slightly worse fuel economy than the RAV4 hybrid. It loses 1 mpg all around, and it has slightly less cargo volume than the RAV4 hybrid while offering the same second row legroom. It's kind of strange that this thing exists. It is maybe a little bit more premium than the RAV4, but it's also more expensive than the RAV4 hybrid. So kind of a peculiar case here. I think we'll get into that a little bit more during the driving portion of this review, but for now, let's start by taking a tour of the 2021 Venza. This is a pretty plain looking vehicle. The new RAV4 took on a more rugged aesthetic, and the Venza, I think, attempts to counter that a little bit with softer, more car-like styling. It's pretty egg-shaped. The front is sleek and narrow in places. Around back, it's got this wraparound rear taillight that looks kind of cool. Take a look at the badging here. It says Venza to the left of the tailgate. Of course, because this is a hybrid, like every Toyota hybrid, it has a blue halo around the Toyota badges front and rear. And then off to the right here, it shows that it's a fully loaded limited model. And once again, it reminds you that it's a hybrid. Power tailgate. Pretty high opening there. You can set the opening height to all these power tailgates, and this one opens pretty wide. Like I said though, it reveals a cargo area that is significantly smaller than the cargo area in the RAV4, which is mind-blowing given that Toyota is charging more for this vehicle and positioning it above the RAV4 and the RAV4 hybrid. You can see there aren't any power outlets back here either. You can get an AC power outlet in the RAV4, but nothing back here. It doesn't even really have any tie-down points, so this thing really isn't that functional from a cargo area standpoint. There's your spare tire change equipment. You've got a nice cargo cover. Simple one-handed operation there. Start button's in a unique place. It's located on the center console here. It's a hybrid, so the engine doesn't come on when you start it up initially. Here's the window sticker. It's not very legible, but this one is a fully loaded limited model. Again, one standard powertrain on this thing. It's the same hybrid that you get in the RAV4, so it uses a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder supplemented by a hybrid system, and it makes a combined 219 horsepower. All-wheel drive is standard, just like it is in the RAV4 hybrid, and it uses electric motors to power the rear wheels. So it's a pretty light-duty all-wheel drive system. Anyway, sticker on this fully loaded 2021 Venza is $43,100. Fuel economy is rated at 40 mpg city, 37 highway, 39 combined. That is 1 mpg worse than the RAV4 hybrid in all three areas there. Like I said before, this vehicle is based on the Japanese market Toyota Harrier, and that's evident to me in some of its interior quirks. You'll notice there isn't a ton of storage space around the driver here. You'll remember that the RAV4 has a clever storage solution across the dashboard here. There's a little storage cubby to the left of the steering wheel here, and then there's plenty of storage on the center console of the RAV4 as well. Not so much in the Venza. Of course, you get door pocket storage there, but there's nothing in front of the passenger seat here, nothing to the left of the steering wheel. And then on the console, you've got two cup holders here. This is all kind of wasted space. Sure, it's a little bit more stylish than what you get in the RAV4, but as far as functionality goes, it's a little bit lacking. There's a wireless charging pad ahead of the shifter here, and sure, you could use that for storage whenever you're not charging a phone there. 2 USB-A ports and an aux port at the front of the center console here. I'd like to see USB-C, but Toyota's typically pretty behind the curve when it comes to adopting new technologies. The infotainment screen measures 12.3 inches. It's the same screen that's used in the updated Lexus RX. It's the same screen that's used in the new Highlander, and it's bigger than anything you can get in the RAV4, so that's a plus. Gauge cluster is going to look pretty familiar if you've been in any modern Toyota hybrid. There's a digital display in the center, speedometer is off to the right, and then battery charge and efficiency information appears in the gauge off to the left there. I will admit the interior of this Venza is pretty nice. Granted, it's a fully loaded limited model, but you've got nice leather, or at least simulated leather, on the door panels here. This is all wrapped in leather. This is a unique pattern on this piece of plastic trim here. Switchgear, of course, feels good. Leather atop the dashboard. Somewhat soft touch on top of the gauge cluster here. Not the nicest, actually. This is hard plastic, a little bit of a surprise there, and then more leather, or simulated leather, continues on in front of the passenger. It's on the center console here, simulated leather right here, and it does have stitching in it. Heated and ventilated seat controls are behind the cup holders here. That's a unique place for them. Here's your center console, and again, there's this unique cup holder thing. I don't know what. It's a cup holder that tells you not to put bottles or cups in it. Storage is okay, I guess, right there. There's a 12-volt outlet, but not a whole lot of space there. One more thing I wanted to point out before we move on to the back row. One way you can tell a vehicle is primarily designed for markets outside of the United States is if it randomly has power folding side view mirrors. You won't find that on the RAV4, you won't find it on the Highlander, you won't find it on the Sienna, but you do find it in the Venza because the Venza was primarily designed for the Japanese market. Okay, here in the second row of the Venza, and I just looked it up, and this thing has the exact same second row legroom as the RAV4. So, compact SUV levels of space back here. You get the same material on the second row door panels as you do on the front doors. That's nice to see. Not a whole lot else to show back here. Grab handles overhead. There is a light, but it's almost over the cargo area there, and that's because there's a pretty large panoramic sunroof in this vehicle. Not too much on the back of the center console here. You get some air vents, and then down below there are 2 USB-A ports. Cup holders in the fold-down center armrest. Seat back pockets on both the passenger and the driver's seat. Yeah, that about covers it. I would probably be comfortable back here on a road trip. It doesn't feel too cramped. Still though, it's a compact SUV level of space. So when evaluating the Venza, I think your starting point should be the RAV4 Hybrid. This vehicle is built on the same platform as the RAV4 Hybrid. It uses the exact same powertrain as the RAV4, same second row legroom as the RAV4, same all-wheel drive system as the RAV4. It's basically a rebodied RAV4. There's 50. Toyota's hybrid powertrains have never really bothered me. The RAV4 Hybrid is the one I recommend to most people. And yeah, the powertrain in the Venza is the same way. On top of all that, you get all of Toyota's reliability. You get this infotainment system, which is pretty nice. Loads of active safety tech, all the stuff that you've come to expect from a modern Toyota. What's just weird to me is that this vehicle is slightly less efficient than the RAV4 Hybrid. It doesn't have nearly as much space as the RAV4 Hybrid. It isn't as functional as the RAV4 Hybrid. Like, there just aren't as many tie-down points or power outlets in the cargo area, that kind of thing. And yet it's more expensive than the RAV4 Hybrid. So its existence is a little bit tough to justify. It's hard to understand why Toyota has chosen to bring this vehicle to the US just because it's so similar to the RAV4 Hybrid. My take, I guess, would be this. The RAV4 is extremely mainstream. It's meant to be efficient and comfortable, but also functional. Like I alluded to before, the RAV4 has a more rugged aesthetic with its most recent redesign. And I think Given all that, Toyota saw an opportunity for a softer, more car-like, maybe semi-premium compact crossover in its lineup. I assume they're betting that the crossover segment will get big enough that there will be room for this vehicle to coexist alongside the RAV4. But as it stands right now, I am really questioning that. I will say it is a little bit nicer than the RAV4. Surfaces and the driver cockpit area feel slightly more premium. Keep in mind though, they can't be too premium because then you'd be stepping on the toes of the Lexus RX and NX. So yeah, this is a peculiar case, this vehicle. I really like the RAV4 and I really like the RAV4 hybrid. So with that in mind, it's hard for me to see the advantages of the Venza. I think the ride's probably a little bit softer. I wish I could drive this thing back to back with a RAV4 hybrid. Cabin's probably slightly quieter. I'm just guessing though. It very well may not be. Back when the original Venza debuted, it filled a hole in Toyota's lineup. They've always offered the 4Runner, which as years have gone on, has become more of a specialty vehicle. It's more of a Jeep Wrangler, Ford Bronco competitor at this point. And to the point that they introduced the Venza, they hadn't had a 5-passenger crossover. Venza in its first generation form was only sold for 6 years. It was built in the United States, unlike this second generation model. And it filled that gap for somebody who doesn't want a 3-row SUV like the Highlander, but still wants a reasonably spacious crossover. That's what the Venza was at first, and I assume that that's what the second generation Venza was going to be as well. Just given that, again, yes, Toyota has the 4Runner, that's its 5-passenger off-road oriented SUV, but they don't have a 5-passenger midsize crossover. So that's what I assume this vehicle was going to be, but it definitely isn't. The RAV4 is closer to being, say, a Honda Passport competitor than the Venza is. I looked up some numbers before making this video, and the Venza is smaller than the Nissan Murano, it's smaller than the Hyundai Santa Fe, it's significantly smaller than the Honda Passport, it's smaller than the Lexus RX, and it's bigger than the Lexus NX. That's a subcompact SUV, but its maximum cargo area is actually on par with the NX. So this vehicle is, I mean, I know I've said it's small on several occasions, but when you compare it to other vehicles that you assume it is on par with, it's actually smaller than just about everything. Toyota has the worst backup cameras in the industry. So there's your look at the 2021 Toyota Venza. This thing is kind of strange. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why Toyota would offer this vehicle in the US. I'm assuming they're predicting that there will be further growth in the compact SUV segment in coming years, which will leave room for a vehicle like the Venza. But as it stands, this vehicle has the exact same powertrain as the RAV4. It's maybe slightly more premium than the RAV4, and you're certainly not going to see as many of them on the road as you do the RAV4, but it's no more powerful than the RAV4. It has significantly less cargo space than the RAV4. It's nowhere near as functional. It gets 1 mpg less all around, and it's more expensive than the RAV4. So I'm sure this thing will find buyers. I don't think I would be one of them, but hey, in the end, it's another Toyota SUV, so you can rest assured that it is at least going to offer good fuel economy. It's going to be reliable. It's got pretty good touch points and things like that. Problem is, Toyota already has an SUV like that, and that is the RAV4 hybrid. So that's my take on the new Venza. Thanks for watching.